Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Tom Barry. This is my wonderful wife, Rebecca. We were asked to do this video about how we are dealing with these challenging times, both in terms of how we're dealing with life and also what we're studying in the scriptures that are helping us out. So that's what we'd like to talk about. We're going to give you a bit of an insight into how we are dealing with these challenging times kind of on an everyday basis, as we're the four of us in our family are all living under one roof. And then we'll share some things from the scriptures that have been helping us. So in terms of how we're living during this time, maybe you want to share a little bit?
Yeah, one thing that we've done is we've turned our living room into a parkour and tumbling room for Austin, who loves to do flips and tricks. So we've kind of made allowances for that and have mats all over the floor in there. We've also been trying to get outside and making sure that we're all exercising at least a few days a week.
Yeah.
Keep the spirits up.
Yep. We're also making do under the circumstances. At least the male members of my family have been doing homemade haircuts. Rebecca got sort of the barber clippers at the start of this, and so yeah, homemade haircuts. Also, we have been adopting a Danish mindset, or really a Nordic mindset, that is encapsulated in a Danish word, and that word is hygge. And what this means, or at least one way it can be summarized, is the complete absence of anything annoying. And the Nordic people use this mindset as a way to get through the long winter months where they spend a lot of time inside. And so we've been using it as a bit of a hint word in our family. Right? Being around each other all the time, it can pose its challenges, and it gives us a way to sort of hint to each other that perhaps we are not dealing with the complete absence of anything annoying, and so it helps us to get back on track. So that gives you a bit of insight into what we're doing in our household to try to make things work during these times. What we wanted to do now is just share some thoughts out of the scriptures, things that we've been studying over the last period of time that have been helping us. We've been focusing on the idea of overcoming. And when we thought about what might be helpful during this time, we thought this idea of overcoming really applies to what we're dealing with right now. Because we're all in a place where we have opportunities to overcome. Because we're all facing challenges, whether it's financial challenges or relationship challenges, right? Relationship challenges coming from the folks you're with all the time in your household, or whether it's because you can't be with people that you want to be with. Both of those are challenges. We're dealing with challenges like illness or even death among our family members or our loved ones, and a whole host of other types of challenges we could be facing. And the idea of overcoming is throughout the scriptures, and I think it's really relevant to what we're going through now. So what I wanted to do is read 1 John chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. And it says, "This is love for God, to obey his commands. And his commands are not burdensome, for everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith." I think this is a great scripture. It starts by talking about how God's commands are not burdensome. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, this is a bit of a challenging idea, because God's commands can at least feel burdensome. They can to me. But John is telling us that they're not burdensome. And when you try to reconcile those two things, I think the next sentence really helps, where it says, "For everyone born of God overcomes the world." Right? And so it talks about the idea of overcoming the world. And so when I think about how are God's commands burdensome, right, it's not the commands themselves, but it is our challenges with our temptations toward the world. And when we try to live out God's commands and we're pulled in the direction towards the world, that is what makes those commands burdensome. It goes on to talk about what is the victory that overcomes the world, right? How do we overcome? What's the means by which we actually achieve overcoming? And that is by our faith. And I think it's important to think about what he's talking about. He's talking about living and acting faithfully, trusting God and trusting God's love for us enough to know that When we feel the battle and we are tempted to go with our own way or with sinful tendencies or whatever the case might be, we make the choice to instead live out the scriptures, right? Because faith can really be thought of as living as if the scriptures are true. So the way we overcome the world, right? The way we battle, the way we exercise our faith in a way to overcome is by battling ourselves, right? Specifically those things in ourselves that tempt us away from living as if the scriptures are true. Becky, you want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, it reminds me of a scripture I read a couple days ago in 1 John 4:16, just a little bit up from where Tom was reading. And it says, "And so we know and rely on the love God has for us." And I see that Jesus overcame the world with love and truth. And when I have challenges to overcome, that my tools are also God's love and truth. I'm understanding that I will not be able to overcome the challenges that I face unless God's love is really deeply rooted in my heart. And I will not be able to express love to other people, especially if I'm under pressure, unless I really have God's love embraced, experienced, and internalized in myself. And a few ways that I've been working to do this is to deliberately live like the scriptures are true. I also find practicing gratitude is huge. Another way that really connects for me is being out in nature, especially when I see things in nature and see it as a personal gift to me. It really helps me enjoy the gifts that God has given me and feel loved by God. I also understand that in order to plant love deeply in my heart, I have to pull out the weeds, which is sin. And when sin rears its head, it really is a crack in my foundation that is my strength that I need to overcome the challenges I'm going to face. And as more challenges put me under pressure, the more weeds are exposed. But this is really a great opportunity for me to pull out more of those weeds and give opportunity for love to grow and flourish, and give me a stronger foundation so that I'm ready to face and overcome the next challenge with God's love and be victorious, really.
That's great. So how do we live as if the scriptures are true, right? Because again, that's how we overcome. It's our faith that is the victory. It is the way we overcome. So we need to live as if the scriptures are true. How do we do this? A couple of different ways to think about it. I think of the avoidance side of the things we need to do in the scriptures, and that's avoiding sin, right? Or repenting when we fall into sin. I also think about the more proactive side of living out the scriptures. And that can be understood, basically encapsulated in loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving our neighbors as ourselves, right? Walking with God, praying to God, hearing God speak to us through the scriptures and through the circumstances of our lives. Really having an honest relationship with Him where He is our most intimate confidant and our most intimate relationship in the world. And then loving others, being in each other's lives, serving the poor, reaching out to those who don't yet know God's love in all its truest forms and fashions. So this is how we can live out the scriptures. But it's not easy. And I think it's important for us to focus for a minute on what is it that makes it hard? Well, I think there are a number of things that make it hard. But the thing I really wanted to think about right now, and I wanted for us to focus on, is discouragement. Right? When we fall into sin, that sin does have consequences in our lives, both like in the real world and eternally and spiritually. The challenge comes is when we sort of give into the temptation to beat ourselves up and fall into discouragement, whether it because we gave into the sin or we gave in again to a sin that we deal with persistently. Or we can face discouragement from other situations, whether it is because we wanted a particular blessing and it didn't happen, or whatever the case might be. All of these can lead to discouragement. And it's crucial that we remain on guard against discouragement, because like when we sin, we lose a battle. when we fall into discouragement, we stop fighting the battle. And when we stop fighting the battle, we're not going to overcome. And that's when we're really vulnerable. So we need to be mindful of discouragement. So as we continue to persevere through these times of pandemic, let's think about the circumstances God is putting us in and what aspects of our character he's highlighting for us to overcome. Let's remember that there is a battle, that there's no way to avoid the existence of the spiritual battle, and that battle is with ourselves. And the way we overcome it is by living faithfully. In other words, living as if the scriptures are true. So those are the thoughts we wanted to share. We love you guys, and we just look forward to the time when we get to be together again. All right, take care.